So we are live. Open the meeting today on 5/15 at 6:05 p.m. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is now open. To reorganize the board with new board members. So to reorganize, start with the way that the board goes is there's a chairman, a vice chair, and a member. So to put it up for vote, does anybody want to be the chairman? So, next. Does anybody, how about the vice chair then?
Vice Chair.
Your vice chair? Okay, let's make a motion that Dan Thibodeau will be the vice chairman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. I can't vote
Aye.
myself.
You can vote for yourself.
Aye.
And then, Jim, that makes you a member. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And then, renew the fee schedule for surrounding towns for food establishments. So this is kind of interesting. This is how the world around us turns.
We're all in this together.
Sorry,
Huh?
our annual food permit is $120 right now.
See that?
Our annual food permit is $120.
And here it's, is that a one day or is that's the year?
That's the year.
So that would equate to, so they're not listing it. Is that both or everything?
That's annual food permit. Yeah, so that's all the food establishments in town.
So 120 is what covers like Mason's,
Mm-hmm.
Warren Market, George's, the Village Market, all that.
Jessica, I'm sorry to interrupt, did you have the, copy
Proposed.
of the recommendations we discussed, the recommended,
No, I can
That's
copy
awesome.
that if you would like, though.
or you can just pass in?
Yeah.
That was my copy.
Would you, Chairman, would you like me to copy this one? This is the proposed.
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
So Tricia, right now, that 120 covers all establishments.
Yes. Yes, the way it is right now, it's 120 for everybody. Having a tough time. Except for temporary. And then the bed and breakfast with food service. Right now, it is for kitchen and living area inspections, but my suggestion is that we take the living area inspections off of that, because the living area inspections actually fall under a different code. So if we're gonna keep food separate and then housing code separate, because they both change at different times.
Right.
You know, I think that bed and breakfast, my suggestion, I believe, was to keep that one. I can't remember. We'll get a copy of it. just on this recommendations, you'll see the name of a business next to it, and that's just to give you a.
Just an idea.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking we should be in line with everybody else. 120. It's kind of hard to compare because they're not in the same categories. They broke out all the categories.
So for the town of Brimfield, permanent food establishments, $250.
Yeah, that's a permanent restaurant. Okay, but if you go to like the
Food service, $150 in Palmer.
and that depends on how many seats.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did is even in their stores and everything, they went up by square footage. And that's what they're charging.
Yeah, West Brookfield is.
Yeah. So their rates are higher than ours because they're getting it per square foot.
The town of Ware is $150 also.
Yep.
We should scratch out under replacement of existing gas, water heaters and boilers. Scratch out the word gas because it could be electric, for one. Two, it could be just a storage tank that runs off the boiler itself. Like a third zone.
For plumbing inspection, plumbing and gas.
Way down at the bottom for third one up, replacement of existing gas, water heaters. Just the wording. Price is great, but just the wording. In case you find somebody out there that says, well, mine's not gas, it's electric.
Mr. Jones,
But you still have people who have gas hot water heaters.
Correct, right.
So you should, I would change and add in electric.
Gas / electric.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, I think there's certain fees for, depending on which Mr. Jones has got it, like. a better understanding.
Yeah. We need to check with him.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Okay, so we have annual food permit for 120, and we have semi-annual food permit for 120.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference?
I think that's basically, the orchard is the only one on that.
I'm not sure how the permits were handled in my absence. I think that when I was here previously, we were working towards trying to tighten this up a little bit. So
Mhm.
in my suggestions, I've maintained the semi-annual food service. My suggestion was to lower that price because we're looking
Yeah,
at.
that's what I was thinking
Like,
too, because I'm reading
probably
this, and
only
they're both
one.
the same, so why bother having the category?
Yeah. So typically, permits are not a money-making income generation.
Right.
It's to cover the cost associated. So for me, at the rate that I'm at right now, I would say that, that's where I'm looking at the prices that I've suggested. For myself, for the 2 required inspections each year. For the semi-annual, we might be able to get 2, but we're more likely to get just 1.
And they're seasonal.
Right, so, I can't really inspect
Yeah.
except for August to November.
Well, wait a minute, they're seasonal.
Seasonal is the
You can't
same
say the
price.
seasonal, because the store opens when?
July, August.
As soon as the apples are ripe, whatever month that is, August, June, anybody?
The fall,
I-
the
yeah.
fall is usually their biggest
Yeah.
season. I'm not sure, have they open semi in the spring for some
I
food
don't think
sales?
so. The best you see there is just the firewood that they sell, the apple firewood.
Yeah, the store's closed right now. But I don't know if they open up.
So they'd only be open up for 4 months out of the
Do
year?
they just sell apples and apple byproducts up there, or are they having like, because I know a lot of other farms have gone to the point where they're now selling vegetables throughout the season.
Last time I was there, he was working, he did have an area that was set up as a kitchen. It was
Mhm.
not up to code, and so we had talked about adding an additional sink or 2. I'd have to review the old inspection form, but I know that we were working towards raising the bar towards, compliance.
So I know they bake and everything else up
Yes,
there.
there's baking, and I think that there was even a discussion about adding more products. I can't really speak intelligently to it because it's been a few years since the last time I was there. But, I think, based on my recollection, 1 inspection would be fine, but we would definitely want to be in there. And when I say 1 inspection, I mean 1 inspection with any required re-inspection
Right.
of that inspection. But I think once a year may suffice. And if it doesn't, then we could bump it up to an annual inspection and just, even if it's only open 5 months out of the year, I make that a priority to get there on either end.
Yeah, I can't see having both annual and semi-annual at $120. That's ridiculous.
And seasonal.
Right. And because you got the seasonal food permit that's 122. And they fall into pretty much all 3 categories. So I'm thinking that's gonna change.
Most definitely, you're right. That's gotta change.
So seasonal and semi-annual should go down to 100, I think.
I agree. Do we need to make a motion to change that, or we're just reviewing this, correct? At this point in time?
Yeah.
I do need to send out permit renewals
That's right.
next week,
Yeah.
so,
Let's do this now.
if there's,
Let's make a motion to
Yep.
lower the rate on the semi-annual food permit from $120 to $100.
And
Do I have a
also,
second?
also the seasonal.
Second.
We're gonna keep
Include the
the,
seasonal on that too.
we're gonna keep the seasonal at 120 though, correct? Yeah. And then move the semi-annual down to 100.
they're basically the same.
Are you going off of, are you referencing the recommendations sheet, or are you
Yes.
going off of this? Okay.
This one.
Yeah. Just food
Let me
service,
take a look at,
semi-annual.
let me take a look at the recommendation sheet here.
Yeah. Like currently it's 120.
Yeah.
So we're going, the semi-annual food permit going down from $120 to $100.
Does that include seasonal then?
I think it should, it's basically the
Annual,
same thing.
120. Oh, wait a minute. Semi-annual food permits. Food permits, semi-annual, $100.
Yeah. Seasonal.
So it's already there, it's all, okay, that's under, and then the regular annual is 120.
Right.
Okay.
That's your suggested fees.
Yeah, so, everybody agree to that? So, that follows the recommendation for semi-annual being 100 and annual being 120. And on our fees at this point in time, we're at 120 for both semi-annual and annual. So let's make the semi-annual 100. I'm gonna make a motion to make the semi-annual food permits $100. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion made and second, and then motion is made. Anybody got anything else here?
I think all the others are pretty much in line.
We don't have any trailer parks, right?
Well, we
Yes.
do
Yes.
have trailer parks. I
We
think
can
there's
have-
two.
We can have that discussion later on. I would like to discuss if you want me to do those inspections or not, and then there are also regulations that we need to follow for receiving their applications and their approval from the Attorney General every year for their rules and regulations.
Yep.
But
That trailer park's gotta be, although we're way out there then on 19, huh, by the turnpike, and way out there. You know, I almost forget about that being part of the town, but, it just came to my brain.
So,
Okay.
for my recommendations for food, I think the last 4 on here were the ones that were not on the original fees list. So the caterer, soft serve ice cream machine, HACCP or variance review, because at any time there's a variance, that needs to be reviewed by your board and approved annually, and would need to be managed by Jessica, as well as the soft serve ice cream machines, which require monthly testing, and those test results would come into the office. So these suggested fees would help to offset the work that she does in the office for managing and maintaining the files and making sure that we're receiving what we need to receive in. And then the one that I did not add to this suggestions, that I should have, is the plan review. Plan reviews, you'll see it on some of the other town fees. They do a food plan review.
Yep.
Most of them are at $100. The other town that I work for, that I do plan reviews for, it's based on market price, which for me would be, my contract is a minimum of 3 hours to review a plan, so my normal rate, a minimum of 3 hours to review that plan. And then if it's more than 3 hours, it's at my hourly rate. So my suggestion to you is that if you'd like me to continue that here in this town, that I would suggest that you either base the starting rate at a minimum of 3 hours, or you just list it as market price, and that would be market price based on whatever contract you have, whether it's with me or any other contractor that you use to do the plan reviews.
This is for?
Just the food plan review. And that's, there's a whole nother book that I use to go on that, and it requires the floor plan, it requires all this information, and just understanding the flow of food and reviewing that application to make sure that it's being built appropriately, that we're meeting code, that the volume of the food that's expected matches the amount of refrigeration. There are calculations that we do to try to determine that, to make sure that the refrigeration and storage is adequate for the expected volume of the establishment. It also goes into review the pad or the site where the dumpsters would go, reviews all of the, all the things that we've been going through in a recent application review. Goes through all of that, but it offsets that. So
We don't do that now, though.
I had been doing that previously. I think that we had done that previously in my other tenure, but we don't have it listed on this fee schedule. And right now, I'm kind of suggesting it because the current situation is
It is
But-
something that does need to be addressed and added.
the town of Warren is paying for me to do those plan reviews as it is right now, and I think that should be,
So does that make their menu in stone for what, for the year then? They have to, then basically we're saying, this, I can't change it every month, depending upon what season it is. Maybe it's a cold season and like maybe spaghetti would sell better for warm things as opposed to a fish sandwich or something like that. I haven't a clue, but.
there is flexibility within it, but what it does is it helps to set the foundation of the file. So the documentation is set. It starts off on the best foot possible, so that your food professional has reviewed the plan, and then what I would do is I would present it to you guys. We received the plan. It was stamped. This has been approved within 30 days on my side. I send it to you. I recommend that you issue this initial permit for this new food establishment, whether it's new construction or new owner, change of ownership, something like that. And then that file has already been started where we know that the floor plan is good, we have sinks in the right places, and then anyone who picks up that file can see what was approved, what was discussed, what the menu is, that in this moment in time, this is approved, this meets the 2013 Massachusetts Merged Food Code.
I think we need to put that back into play.
It is kind of interesting because it's like building, that way there that if what their menu is what their menu is and how many people they can serve.
Right.
To know the outline of the kitchen, sort of like building a septic system built on how many bedrooms you have,
Yes.
And this way here we know that they're not bringing
And
food.
typically, if you outline and you make the floor plan, it gives you an idea, it gives the inspector an idea, it gives us an idea of what the flow is of how the food is gonna go in and out of the place. That's the whole premise behind it.
That's great,
So I think we need to add that back into the program.
absolutely. I need to make a motion to do that?
Yep,
I make a motion to add the food
plan review.
plan review to the permits. Anything more?
So you're gonna add the whole section on the bottom of the page for a caterer, $50 in addition to food service permit. soft serve ice cream machine.
I got a question on the source salt ice cream. Did you say it's gotta be checked every month?
For
Yeah.
soft serve ice cream that is dairy-based in the state of Massachusetts, you are required to have monthly coliform count testing. So the establishment would be required to have another company come out and do the testing, or they can do their own sampling and follow the chain of custody and deliver it to the lab themselves. And then those results are sent back to the health department by the lab, and so Jessica would receive that every month. What I did in another town was I would track it, so I would make sure that every month, it's a management thing, but you make sure that you're receiving them every month. And if not, then you have to follow up with the food establishment. If there's an exceedance, then Jessica would be able to, she could do the preliminary review of it. It'll say if there's an exceedance. And then there's procedures in the Massachusetts Food Code for retesting, or they just shut it down. So it's basically, if it exceeds coliform counts, then they can either clean it, sanitize it, and have it retested, or they can shut it down until the next test results come in. But basically, the coliform counts tell us if they're improperly sanitizing the machines, if there's an issue with the machine, which there are hundreds of pieces to take apart these machines.
And that almost sounds like a separate portion of the application for a restaurant, if they're gonna sell self-serve.
Yes, and that's why
That's
the
one question.
recommendation, that's why my recommendation is to have it as a separate permit. That way if there's an issue and they're not fulfilling the requirements of that machine, then you as your board, you can revoke that one permit and they can still operate as a food establishment, but they can no longer serve soft serve ice cream until they meet those. So you're able to have some administrative power without shutting that entire establishment down.
So whenever I look at all that work that's happening there for $50, should we raise that a little bit, maybe?
Do we have establishments with soft serve right now?
We have one, Mobile got rid of theirs because they couldn't keep up with it.
Yeah.
The other one is Village Market. We know that's not gonna be kept up.
I think that was removed, right?
No, it's still in the building.
If it's still in a building and and you see it there, at least they should do is put something like some red tape around it or something, or somehow in there should be
Put a
some
sign on it, out of service.
out of service. Great, Dan, absolutely.
We're also trying to be proactive and before somebody comes into town and we're not ready for it. I think of that. And same with the HACCP or the variance review. If we get a sushi establishment in town, then there's a variance required, a HACCP plan has to be reviewed. If they're doing acidification of sushi rice, if we have any fermentations going on in town, if anyone's making their own sauerkrauts or things like that, that requires a HACCP and a variance review, and that's a lengthy review for me, and that's more science-based, and then that has to go before you annually to reapprove it. So I'm suggesting that these are separate and not tucked
Not lumped in with the
into.
regular permit.
Yeah.
Separate permits for those
Okay.
items.
So then, everybody's happy with $50 for that separate permit?
Well,
Correct.
that's in addition to the food service permit.
It's in addition to it, correct, yeah, but, still.
I would typically maybe go up 75 on that. I don't think 50's gonna be enough to cover it.
I don't think 50 is enough to cover everything here.
Yeah, I
70.
think that should go up to 75.
I agree.
I agree with the
as well?
75.
We need a motion to change that?
Yep, let's do it.
I make a motion that we up the fee for self-serve permits from $50 to $75. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion made and second. It is now $75.
And then the other one we have to do, Dawn, is to keep the caterer, soft serve, the HCCP, and the plan review, all separate permits.
Yes. Mobile food, 120. What's everybody else doing out there in the big world?
So for this one, I just want to call out that it appears that previously we had a mobile food unit, but it says more than 14 days. And I think I want to explain the differences here. If a food truck comes into the town of Warren, but they're based in another town, they would fall under a temporary food establishment.
Right.
If it's a mobile food truck that is housed here, then we're responsible for inspecting them initially, and then we would also want to make sure that they have a permitted commissary kitchen that they're working out of. So they would have to have a food establishment permit and their mobile food establishment permit, or have a leased kitchen.
Why, you can't make stuff out of a mobile unit? There's plenty of
Sometimes
mobile
you-
units out
sometimes
there
you-
that have a grill for hamburgers and hot dogs.
Yes, I apologize. So you can prepare the foods in there, but you still need a service, a place, a base of operations where you're going to dump your gray water, where you're going to refill your water tanks and things like that, refill your sanitizers if you're mixing it off-site, where you're going to receive deliveries or store the products prior to putting them
You
onto
have
the
to have
truck.
a home base.
Yeah. Which would also require a plan review.
I mean, typically, if you
To
see one
open.
of these catering trucks that go around construction sites and everything else, they have a hot plate grill on their truck. They'll either put hot, just to keep it hot. It's not to cook it or prepare it, it's to keep it hot. They prepare it back at their home base, and then it goes onto the truck, and the temperature's maintained with that grill or that, whatever, on that truck. It's not cooked on the truck.
It's like pre-cooked somewhere else in the kitchen and then brought to
Correct.
that truck.
Correct. And those trucks have water on board, but that water, you cannot dump it into a storm drain on the side of the road, you cannot dump it to the earth. It has to go to either a recreational waste facility where you take your mobile homes and deposit all your waste from there, which are very far and few in between. And you have to have a permit to do that at those stations. Or you bring it back to your base of operations and you dump it there.
Don't these trucks just have coolers and filled with bagged ice
Yep.
in there? And that's about the extent of it, that's where you get the cold drinks from?
Yes, that's the drinks, okay, but all the pre-cooked food is transferred to the truck and it's kept warm or heated on the truck. Now, you will see some people who will prep their food in the kitchen, they'll refrigerate it, they'll transport it in their truck, it'll stay refrigerated till they get orders for it, then they'll take it out and throw it on their grill.
Okay, that explains, well, okay.
There's a lot to it. For a food truck coming into town, it's a lot simpler of an inspection, I'll say, because there's a lot more diligence on our part in the office. Once we receive that application, there are phone calls to the other health department to make sure you've had eyes on, you've seen this. There's reviewing that application to make sure that it's complete, that it meets the code, and then the final step, the easiest part of it all is the actual inspection. There's a lot more work in the office end of it. But for food trucks in town, it's our duty and responsibility to make sure that people are not, cooking out of their home and then passing it off as a food truck. We need to make sure that things are cooked in commercial kitchens and make sure that the water is disposed of in an appropriate and permittable fashion, and so that's why it's different fees.
It's a different animal altogether.
So then, do we also want to include like a regular hot dog cart in this
So hot
description?
dog carts are considered mobile food. Push cart, we could add push cart on there, we could add hot dog cart. Hot dog carts are a far simpler scenario. They're still covered under the Massachusetts Merged Food Code, but you know, if they're only doing steamed hot dogs with rolls and there's no
Maybe a
prepared food
kibasa link or
items.
something like that, you know?
If
But
it
still, I
meets-
can see the picture where it's in his tray with water just, you know, steaming to keep it warm and, because it's already been cooked somewhere else.
Yeah.
And, they can just take it right out, put it on the bun, and bada bing, bada boom, there you go.
There are different variables, correct, yeah. So that's not a time and temperature control for safety food. If it's just a hot dog, if it meets certain nitrate or nitrate, it's not considered a time and temperature control for safety food.
It's a
The
heat and
bread
serve,
wouldn't.
it's pre-cooked already.
Yeah, it would still be a sanitation inspection, but it's much simpler. So, I think that if we had something like that come across our desk and an application for that, then we might consider adding, you know, a hot dog push cart. But at this time, I think that it's acceptable to say that it falls under mobile food because we still have to do a lot of review up front. And if we determine that it's only steamed hot dogs, they're not making chili at, you know, serving
Chili,
chili
yeah.
or
You're not getting chili dogs,
slicing
you're not getting
tomatoes
sauerkraut
or-
dogs, you're not getting this kind of dog, you're not getting
Yeah.
that kind of dog, it's
Okay.
one dog.
then
Forgot
that,
about the chili dog.
yeah, if we talk about risk-based inspections, then a strict push cart with just steamed hot dogs and rolls is so low risk that we could, you know,
Okay.
we could consider that during the application process.
Okay, just for some reason, I would have thought that those mobile food trucks would be their own mobile kitchen. So you would start out like 7 o'clock in the morning, or like the ones that go, the mobile food trucks that go to someplace out there. There's a bunch of them, the one that show up at all the different work sites,
Yeah.
you know, and all that food is pre-cooked and made and everything else. And they opens it up and then here's the warm stuff, here's the cold stuff.
So,
So, but now we're going to move it to a truck that's got burners in it, propanes, the big propane tanks, and he's got the ability, I would think, that person would have the ability to cook that, depending upon what he thought, you know, wherever he might be, how many hot dogs he put out there on that, you know, pre-cook them.
they do, the other reason for a commissary is because a lot of these food trucks don't have the ability to run refrigeration or, well, especially refrigeration when they're not operating. So in order to keep food there, in order to make that their establishment without a commissary, they would have to have constant electricity running there to store the foods, unless they were to, you know, I digress. But, and in addition to that, we have to have some plan review, because a lot of these with the propane, you're not able to operate the refrigeration or heating while transporting. That's a DOT regulation, so I cannot just assume that everything stays hot in their food truck while they're
Going from point A to point B.
right. So
What I don't understand about that one is that in my mobile home, I've got a propane refrigerator, and as I'm going down the road, it still keeps my sodas cold.
Yes, but you're not regulated because you're not a DOT. Business vehicle like a Roach Coach or something like that, or like these food trucks that go around selling food, they're DOT certified, they have to follow under DOT regulations, which means they can't run their propane or their generator, whatever they have on that vehicle, while they're in transport.
Water, transport. So don't they just put big shelves of ice, and they got ice in there, and
For
then?
the cold drinks, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
yeah,
Okay, so I totally lost track of what the question was. Do we wanna keep the food permits for those mobile food trucks at 120? I guess,
Yeah,
okay. And it doesn't matter what it's going to be, whether it's going to be a hot dog cart or
yeah, right.
a mobile food truck that, got everything ready to rock and roll.
Basically, your most, the most regulations are gonna be on the mobile food truck, not on the tail end of the hot dog cart. So you're actually pricing for the inspections, everything on the mobile food vehicles.
I would think those still want to have, hot dog cart that you wanna make sure it's got some way to keep that food more steamed, something, a little propane tank, 20-gallon, and some sort of little burner, just
Well,
to keep
typically, that's how they're all set up.
salmonella at a minimum, you know?
Yeah, typically, that's how they're all set up.
Okay. 120 works for everybody? Hate to see the price of hot dogs go up just because of what we're doing here. Okay.
Are you adding the retail food permit?
Could you hear that again?
Are you adding the retail food permit?
Adding the retail food permit.
So currently, the markets and so forth that maybe sell less items are still under our annual food permits.
So the retail food permit is $100.
So these are all just suggested.
Right.
So we don't have a
We don't
retail
have that.
food permit currently. It's used as our regular food establishment annual permit. And after inspections, it was maybe recommended, since some establishments maybe only sell, what were you saying?
Just
Coffee
the,
and-
yeah. So basically what I'm saying is that the way that I think that we
We're
should.
talking about cereals
Yeah.
and things like that.
So I think what we need to differentiate that a food establishment is any place that is regulated under the FDA, under the Massachusetts Food Code, right? And then under that, we have these different categories. So food service would be a place that is preparing and serving foods. A retail food establishment would be one that just has the dry goods. We're still going to go in there and do inspections for retail, maybe, maybe they have a little bit of time and temperature control for safety food, but it's all commercially prepackaged. So we'll have the gallons of milk, we'll have the half and half, and the convenience items that still require our oversight, but they're not handling or preparing any foods. My suggestion for that is mostly because, for me, on an inspection, if I go into a gas station, say that's not preparing any foods, they don't have any time and temperature control foods that they're not making potato salad or slicing deli meats, then it's a much faster inspection for me. It's just the sanitation aspect of it. It's making sure that the trash is going where it needs to be, that it's being picked up, that there are no pests. But for a restaurant, a food service establishment, I'm checking for temperatures, I'm checking for reheating procedures, cooling procedures, things like that, which is far more.
And that's why I
Involved.
had mentioned earlier, like Warren One Stop has got, they prepare sandwiches, but they also have the retail section. where-
Yeah.
And it's all one fee now, it should be segregated out.
Broomfield
two
wants
different areas.
$125 for a retail, like the Broomfield one.
Mhm.
So is $100 a little on the low side, or?
What do we, One Stop? No, I don't think it's on the low side. I mean, if you look at, who's this? I don't know who this one was. But
Town
this
of
one-
Palmer.
Huh? This, oh, Palmer. They break theirs down by square foot. Up to 100 square feet, retail food is $50. 100 to 1,000 square feet, it's 150.
That's a big difference.
1,001 to 5,000, it's 350. And 5,001 plus square feet, 650. And reinspection of 3 or more times is $50. So I think I don't think the $100 is too low.
No, I think it's right on. Okay. Yes, we're gonna add the retail. I'm gonna make a motion to add retail food permits for $100. Make a motion.
A second.
Motion made in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion has been approved. Anybody else got any questions on all that? Thank you very much for all that work.
Thanks.
Thank you very, very much.
Did you conclude your motion for adding the soft serve and the HACCP one also?
Yes. And the plan review was under that also? And that was a 75 increase on the soft serve?
Ready for the next one? Catering. Do we want to, or did we already, make a, fee for catering? Catering is gonna be kind of a tricky thing. I mean, do we know enough about this? So for food going from one location to another, to be kept warm enough, to be kept cold enough? What if it's the middle of winter? How do you get hot food? What if you just got hot serving trays? What do you have to transport it? Or do you going to reheat it? What happens if it, there's a bunch of things that can happen there. Anybody have any suggestions on, what to do with catering? Should we, come up with some kind of plan on what kind of equipment would be necessary?
If I could, please interject, I think that we discussed it as far as a permit goes, so we're going to add it as a separate permit, if I'm understanding.
Right.
You have voted on the fee, so I think that at this point it was maybe a moot point, but yes, to your question, there is a lot in the merged food code that helps to guide me during inspections, and I think that if we add this on, it will help to protect the businesses in town who are catering outside of the town of Warren. So if they already have a food service establishment in town, then they can cater within town. So they could go to Laurel Ridge Bed and Breakfast and cater an event there if they chose to. They could go to Lucy Stone Park and cater an event there. We would want to know about it, but we've already permitted and they're already inspected. If it's a caterer from outside of town, they need to notify us within 48 hours on either side of their event, I believe. But as far as protecting our establishments in town, if they cater to another town outside, then that town, if they're doing their due diligence, should contact our health department or request copies of, inspection reports or anything like that. And if we give our establishments a permit that says, a separate permit that says caterer, then they can take that permit to the other town and show that.
So as far as rules and regulations for catering, we should attach those rules and regulations to the application so that those people become aware of, or at least know, what the rules and regulations are for catering.
So
And that
what-
way there,
Yeah.
they should then meet the criteria for any kind of equipment or for what is necessary for that equipment to meet that criteria for those rules.
Correct, so all of the the minimum requirements for sanitation in food establishments is in the Massachusetts Merged Food Code. It doesn't break it out in an easy-to-read manner. I just want to hasten you on that because there are a lot of what-ifs. So if, then, is kind of the rule of thumb in any food handling for food safety. The requirement in Massachusetts is that we direct any applicant to a copy of this code which I believe we've added to a link or directions as to where to get it. We direct them to mass.gov, where they can find the Massachusetts Merged Food Code and then educate themselves on it. I hasten the board to put any limitations on what we hand out because there's so much if-then. So if, and I've seen mobile food trucks or caterers that are doing raw oyster bars, which is allowed, but there's a lot more involved based on that menu. So I think that the first step is we follow the application process. They tell us what they're planning on doing. Once we get a full picture of it, we do the review as we do in the plan review. My recommendations to you as your food safety consultant, I will make those recommendations. You as a board, you then decide, are we permitting this or are we not? And I think that is a fair and equitable way, and that's how all 350 other cities and towns in Massachusetts do it. So I would just hasten the board. I would not put limitations or clear guidelines to that. I would just recommend that people go to the Merged Food Code, see what applies for them, and then it's your job to
How many pages is that?
permit it. It's less than the FDA food code, which this is based on, and it references, so,
Okay.
I could tell you, but it's still, we have
No
to reference,
worries.
yeah.
I was just looking to make everybody as safe as possible and to give everybody some, I feel sometimes out there, people just think, oh, catering, what's catering? Get a cooler filled with ice, you know, and boom. You can cater, I can get it from here to Joe's place in no time at all, you know? So, but then by the time you get it there, then everybody breaks down and before you know it, you know, they all got stomach aches and they can't this and that. So just trying to keep that in mind so that, to help out that caterer, so that they don't become involved in some sort of, you know, food poisoning type ordeal.
I think that the permits, at least my professional opinion, the way I've always operated is that you as the board permit, you're the permitting authority. If you permit someone, then it's my job to educate and at least try to maintain the minimum standards for sanitation based on the Merged Food Code. So if you so permit someone, then I can educate them if they need it.
Well, that's music to my ears, Tricia. So let us know whenever you're going to put your schedule out for catering courses.
Yeah, thank you.
Next one on the list is Village Market. They sent us the application. The application is an inch thick with all documentation. It's pretty intense. I only looked over it. I do believe everything is here. To sit down then at this point in time and review everything, we would be here until the roosters would start, if they haven't already. So does anybody want to review this information? I think you should, but I'm recommending that we give this information to our health inspector, Tricia, to see if there are any indiscrepancies. That's my recommendation.
Make a motion.
Do I need a motion? I make a motion that we give this application to Tricia, our health inspector, for a review and get back us on anything you find.
Second.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can do that, right?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes, thank you.
Rate the farm community. That's gonna be a tough one.
That is going to be a tough one. I've already did some talking with the Conservation Commission. Joyce, I believe her name is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We went round and round about it a couple of times. And we came to the conclusion that we do need to have something like this in place in town. I've also reached out to the select board, talked with a couple of them, and the town administrator, and everybody agrees that it's time that we need to have a right to farm community put into place. So part of that is to be putting together a bylaw, okay, which I've already taken a liberty and written it up. We're gonna review it, tear it apart again, and rewrite it again. And then we'll bring it in for the next meeting, because it has to go through our discrepancy here, then it has to go to the select board, and then move it up to the town administrator, then it moves up to the attorney general. And then he sits on it for a while, then kicks it back down to us and says yes or no. So, we've got the first phase of it in play. I'm sending a copy to the select committee, or the select board, and to the town administrator to review and get back to me with questions on it, or any considerations.
That's terrific. Thanks, Dan. Thank you very much. We need
Okay.
something like this, that's for sure.
Along with that
Ooh.
goes the next one, which is animal bylaws. Now, the animal bylaws are more in-depth. We did, again, talking with Joyce and a couple other people, it's in our best interest to do animal bylaws. It's gonna be a lot more in-depth to skin that cat, so to speak, than the right to farm community. Okay? This one, both of these are basically gonna have to be brought up at a town annual meeting or a special meeting and voted on, or they have to be made, the town has to be made aware of it. And then, if it's accepted, it gets voted in. Okay? The bylaws basically are exactly that little yellow book that everybody has in the building, that's where it will go. It has to go in line with the zoning bylaws also, and it gets reviewed by the zoning commission and everybody else. Again, there's a rough draft that I've started on, and the rough draft, basically what we did was we went to a couple of different communities around, and looked at what they had, and got information on what we needed to do, and we have the basis of an animal bylaw now, okay? Which basically brings down to detail how many specific types of animals you're allowed to have on your yard or on your land, depending on the acreage of your land, okay? And each animal is, instead of an animal referred to as a horse, a cat, a dog, a pig, or a goat, it's referred to as a unit. So if your footprint of your property is 2.5 acres of land, okay, and the caveat to that is it has to be usable acres of land for the animal, and it has to be able to support that animal. So the question that really comes out, the first thing that comes out was goats. Okay, you can have up to 8 goats on an acre of land, providing the land can support the 8 goats. If it can't, then the number gets dropped down. So,
Determines whether or not the land can support 8 goats.
how much does a goat eat? Defecation, cleaning manure, cleaning of the manure, the waste, everything else. Is there a place for the habitat for the animals, the climbing and everything else that the animal requires? Is that all in place on that acre of land? Can it all fit on that 1 acre of land? For the number of goats. Now, it's 8 goats per acre, but they all have to be able to sustain themselves on that acre of land. If they can't sustain themselves on that acre of land, then you can't have 8 goats there. So, and it breaks it down to all types of different animals. So it's the rough draft is there. It's got a little bit of work to be put into it yet. And we're trying to, again, it's got a whole process to go through. We have to finalize it, get it written, present it to the select board, and again, it's gotta go through the zoning board and all that stuff also, because our zones for animal, or animal husbandry is what it is, because you're keeping animals, is basically gonna be mirrored to the zoning bylaws, saying that, you know, inside the village, you can't have this, outside the village in rural areas, you can have this, and that's where it starts with per acre, you can have this, per acre, you can have that, if you have 27 acres, you can have this. So it's broken down that way, so it's in tune with our zoning program,
Okay,
okay?
that's awesome.
So that gets worked together, we're trying to map it out, lay it all out, so that we can put it all together. It's gonna have to go through the select board, then it's gonna have to go to the town administrator, then again, it's gonna have to go through our legal, then it goes to the attorney general. And then it comes back. And then it has to go through special town, well, we have to do the presentation to the town on it, and then, town votes on
You think there's a possibility of people going, that's not a goat, that's my pet? And what do you do with that? What's the difference between an animal and a pet? You know, it has happened.
it? It has happened. It has happened. A pig is a pet.
Pig. I mean, those little
Okay.
pigs are so cute.
But the regulation talks about that.
Horses.
It
Horses,
also
how about
talk-
little, you know, little horses,
Shetland.
Shetland ponies here. You
Yep.
know, that's not a horse, that's my pet.
Yep.
Wow.
It's all taken account for in that regulation,
Okay.
okay? As well as, there's a section in there also for, what do you call them, the animals they use for ADA,
For ADA.
Service, you know.
service animals,
Service animals.
okay?
Oh, those emotional support things? Like
There are
emotional
no,
support squirrel and all that
emotional,
stuff?
emotional support animals are not considered ADA acceptable,
Okay.
okay? And that is the, I think that's a state law. Whether you have a snake that's emotional support, whether you have a bird that's emotional support, doesn't matter, it's not considered under ADA's emotional support.
Doesn't it have to have some
Dogs
kind of
are-
special collar or something like that, or?
You can
tag?
go out anywhere, I can go out and buy a service animal badge for my dog without dog going through training or anything, okay? Just because it's wearing that jacket or whatever doesn't make it a service animal.
Okay.
It has to meet certain regulations. And right now, the state only recognizes dogs and horses,
Dogs and horses?
and that's it.
Huh. Yeah,
So
you got your
that's
hands
all
full
covered
there.
in that regulation too.
Thank you very much.
So it's far from being completed, it's got a ways to go. The goal is to try and get it in for the fall, special. But that depends on,
The
Just on
selectmen and
general.
all those other departments, that's gotta
it's gotta
run
go
through.
right up the chain, and then,
Yeah,
you know,
back
once it
again.
goes to the Attorney General, it's out of our hands, they can hold it for 6 months
Yeah.
or whatever. So, but that's where we are with those right now. It's in process. They're both moving along. I get to see Jim next week to review the, farm regulation, right to farm law.
We need them.
So he can get that going.
We most definitely need them. And like you say, you know, in the village especially, because people live so close together, and whenever you get, you know, 25 chickens and a couple of roosters, and they start out at 5 o'clock in the morning, and people, you need space. People need space. There's no doubt about it.
Mhm.
So,
So it's in the works.
thank you. New business, health inspector update. Tricia, have you got
So-
any updates for us? What's happening out there in the big world?
It's been very busy. So, just a couple updates. As far as the, pardon me, I'm gonna have an itchy throat. I apologize. The housing, there was a correction order out. I apologize. For 2240 Main Street, I don't know what's going on, in West Warren, that was inspected a while ago. The correction order went out on April 1st, with 30-day timeline to correct, which came up recently. The way the process works is that once the correction order goes out, the owner has to be properly served. Anyway, so the timeline starts once the order is properly served, which it was. The 30 days recently came up. The reinspection was scheduled for today. We were accompanied by the fire chief. Dan was there with me as well. And 2 of the items have been corrected. So smoke detectors were installed and are present. The other items were not corrected. So I'm recommending that I will complete my report, and I'm recommending that we continue moving this along through the process. Unfortunately, it's not able to be closed out at this time.
How many discrepancies are left?
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right now, the property is still occupied, and unfortunately, these are violations to the minimum standards for human habitation, that whole code. So I'm recommending that we continue this through the process, and
Okay.
always hope that things are corrected prior to the timeline for completion, but this one was given 30 days for all of them, and it was not completed.
Okay.
The next inspection that occurred today, this one, Jessica came with me. I'm trying to get her out in the field as well, just to get an idea of what we're permitting out in town and what the permitting and inspection process entails. So we went to Mass Appeal, Pizza and Bread Co. In West Warren as well. Had a very good inspection there. It was pretty lengthy. We actually went there first. They were not open. And I was able to get back in later on. There are a few recommendations, but for the most part, very well educated on food safety, was able to answer a lot of my questions, had the information already prepared. So very satisfied with this one. The only thing that we're working on correcting prior to permit renewals will be a couple pieces of equipment that one of them is inoperable, so my recommendation was either to remove it or have it repaired prior to permit renewals. And another one has some significant leaking going on. The challenge here is that the permit holder does not own the equipment and has to go through the landlord, so my recommendations are to have that done, but understanding that there could be some
Mass Appeal?
challenges there, yes. So that's why I gave the extension, the added, 8 or 10 weeks until permits expire,
Yes.
something like that. So giving that little bit of extension, and as long as it's corrected prior to permit renewals, then it should be a smooth renewal process as long as those are corrected. The last one was Mason's. Again, Jessica was there with me for this one. This one had 2 violations, expired test strips, and improper cooling techniques, but with some coaching and mentoring, things were corrected on, well, not the expired test strips, but the cooling process was corrected on site, and I have a re-inspection scheduled for Tuesday to inspect. Again, this was at the end of, it was after 1 o'clock this afternoon. They close at 2, so it was in a bit of shambles for a very busy restaurant. able to see that there were no excessive violations. The owner was able to, or the permit holder was able to speak very well to food safety policies and procedures. And I did not have any major concerns that required closure working with him. And on Tuesday, I expect to have these 2 violations corrected and then have some further coaching and mentoring. The most prominent thing is just the ice machine. You know, things that part of the education process is, you know, we need to make sure that these are cleaned and serviced. If it's a rented piece of equipment, that we have that company or have a company contracted and come in on a routine basis to have it cleaned and sanitized. Just some of that organic buildup or the biofilm that happens with water. So not in the outside parts, not interfering with the ice, but just in some of the upper areas that do not touch the ice, where the condensation and the temperature changes go. Anyway, so again, nothing significant here. This one was certainly, I believe that by the reinspection on Tuesday with coaching and mentoring, you know, we're gonna be right back up there. That was it for my
Awesome.
updates so far.
Awesome. The bed and breakfast up there, Laurel Ridge, have you looked at that one?
That was inspected prior to the last 2 meetings. That was inspected a couple weeks back.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
So the housing code portion of it for the rented rooms was completed. Immaculate, pristine.
Mhm.
I wish most hotels were as clean as that. So, you know, real A+ there,
Awesome.
and the food portion as well. It is a residential kitchen, so that is someone's home. But not only was it pristine, it was also, you know, the permit holder is also very well educated on food safety and proper holding and cooking and sanitation. So I'm
Awesome.
satisfied and very pleased with.
So it sounds like everything almost sounds pretty good out there.
So
Knock
far.
on wood.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Dan, 24 North Street. Did you read that letter that came in? Review that letter for circuit breakers by any chance?
I did.
What do you think about that?
I'd like to see, I told them I wanted the electrician's license. Believe we got a copy of that?
Yes.
And they had not pulled any permits, they had not given us their permits. Their permit as a licensed contractor. So I sent them a text message, as of right now, you're not allowed to perform any work until I get your contractor's license, the electrician's license, and electrical license pulled to do the work on that building. So we sent all of that in plus the fee already.
They haven't even pulled a permit yet to do anything down here?
They didn't,
They didn't?
no, until I jumped on it again.
Okay.
So we have the permit, we have the electrical license, we have the contractor's license also.
What do you think about that 10 amp circuit breaker as opposed to the 15?
15 is minimum by code.
15 is minimum, but why would they sell a 10 amp out there than a 15 is minimum?
Depends on when that building was built, the age of the building, what the code was at that point in time.
So any upgrades would have to be the 15 then?
Would have to go to 15.
Would have to go to 15, okay. That's not the way they sounded like in that letter, I'll tell you. It sounded like there's nothing wrong with it with
Well,
the 10.
that's what it basically stated, there's nothing wrong with it.
Right. Thank you. Old business. Oh, look, we got no old business. You never expect that. Bills and payroll. I think I have to read them all off, if I'm not mistaken.
It's
Or can I just say pay all bills and payroll?
there's a little typo for the stipends, apparently changed to May, so.
There's a little typo there?
This is April,
Oh, yeah, look at that.
May.
I got it. I see it now.
You're a month behind.
I am.
I'll make it for May. What do you think? Can I get away with just saying pay all bills and payroll, or do I have to read off each one separately?
I believe that's what we've done
We've done it in the
previously.
past?
Yeah.
I make a motion to pay all bills and payroll. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Motion
Aye.
made, and second. Motion's approved. Anybody have any questions on them, by any chance? I was a heck of a time to ask if it's been approved, but I didn't see anything.
No.
Did, have they all been signed?
They're all right in that folder with Jim right there. There is an installer's permit in there also.
And that's the first on top, right?
Yes, yep. The septic installer permit for the year.
For the year?
Yep, for the Pocket Brother contracting.
It's the one I signed earlier.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna make a motion to approve the minutes from 4/24 and 5/2. Do I hear a second?
5-1.
That's a one?
It's all-
Oh, there it is, from way back there, it's a one. 5/1, so I'm gonna make a motion to approve the minutes from 4/24 and 5/1.
Second.
Second, motion made, and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion's approved.
They are in there for you to sign.
Mm-hmm.
And the new meeting, June 12th, looks good for everybody?
The third week is Juneteenth, so
You doing what?
June 19th, the Juneteenth.
Oh.
So,
Is that's a 12, right? It is a 12, not a 19.
yes. So so it'd be the 12th or the 26th.
So
The
instead of
town hall
19th,
is
it'll be the
closed
12th?
on the 19th.
Okay, good with that. Just to give you a heads up now, in August, I gotta make a run out to Colorado, so I may not be here for that meeting,
In August?
August.
What part of Colorado?
Not sure yet.
I love Colorado.
Yeah, I gotta go out there for a power plant.
Could we move the meeting to Colorado? I'm just throwing it out there.
Oh, we can do a Zoom, I guess.
I'm sorry.
No, in person.
I'm sure my company would love to go.
I already signed all these.
So June 12th is the next meeting.
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn the Warren Board of Health meeting at 7:25 on 5/15. All in favor? Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Yeah.
Meeting's adjourned.